This video in the tutorial is aimed at tags. Tags in family diagram is an advanced concept. It's actually a pervasive concept in the internet, social media, anything computer related where there's a lot of data. And you want to be able to organize that data by group or category or any other synonym for tag. A tag is like putting a note on a piece of data and marking that piece of data as being a part of that group, category, tag, something like that. For example, Twitter uses hashtags. Everybody's heard about hashtags now. And whenever anybody puts a post on Twitter, they can type in their 140 characters. And then if they use a hash, which is a number sign above the number 3, and then follow it by a bunch of letters with no spaces, then all the letters make up a tag. So then what you can do is you can go search Twitter by tag, and it will show you all of the posts that included that tag. It's a way to search a lot of data. It's a way to categorize a lot of data so that you can go search. That is the function. That's the only function. And family diagram just makes use of that concept. So in family diagram, tags pertain to events only. So this is an empty diagram, and I'll just add in a couple of people. Give them some parents. And then I'm going to add some events. Let's say, well, usually to make it useful, I have to add in a name. Let's say husband, wife, and then maternal, mother, grandmother. Just using first names here, just so they're identifiable. Oops. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to add a few events. One for this husband. Well, I'm going to do it from the timeline just to keep it streamlined. I'm going to click event down here. Husband is already selected, so he shows up. And then I'm going to say, got a cold. This happened 1/1/2001. Just going to add that one. I'm going to add one for wife. Now she's selected because she's in as the person that the event's being added to, because she's already selected on the diagram. It's kind of a convenience. I'm going to say 1/1/2002. Just making these New Year's Day on different years, just to kind of keep it simple. And Crohn's flare up, add. Then I'm going to add one for this person here, maternal grandmother, or would-be maternal grandmother, I suppose. 1/1/2002. And let's say cancer diagnosis. So now there's 3 events in there. These are all symptom events. So let's bookmark that. We've got 3 symptom-oriented events in here. Now let's add, let's set this guy's birth date. We'll say 1/1/1970. 1/1/1972 for the wife. Maternal grandmother. 1/1/19 1940. Okay, so now we've got a timeline here. We've got 3 births, and then we've got 3 symptoms. So, just to reiterate the main concept, tags allow you to search by tag. Search the timeline by tag. So one way that we may want to search a timeline, let's say, is by symptom change. So here we've got our 3 symptom events selected. And just to reiterate how that works, you hold down Command on Mac or Control on Windows, and then and then click the events, and that'll allow you to select more than one. And then you're going to go and inspect the event, or the events rather, those 3 events. So we're going to go edit those 3 events, and you know that you're doing that because it says 3 events up here. So now any change that I make to any of these event properties here will get written to those 3 events. This is a standard part of the editor app paradigm for whether you're editing, where you've got an app that allows you to edit film, or audio or PowerPoint. You always have a selection like these 3 events, as it says here, as it still shows in the timeline. And then if I were to set the date here, it would, if I set this date to 1/1/2020, it would change the date for all 3 of those events to 1/1/2020, overwriting those 3 different dates on those events currently. That is an incredibly important concept. It's a standard concept for editor apps like this, to understand when you have a selection and a property sheet, like this property sheet here on the right, and how that works and what happens when you make a change here, when you have a multiple items selected that you're editing. One of the things you can edit on those 3 events, now that they're selected, again, shown here at the top, is tags. So I can add in a new tag, and while a subtle concept, it is important to understand that when I added a tag here, it's not adding them to these events yet. I can add as many tags as I want here. This is a convenience that you can add a tag to that diagram list. There's one diagram list that just of the available tags, and now I've got 6 tags listed here. A tag is not edited to the selected events until you click it, until you actually click this and check this checkbox here. And now the tag called new tag 2 is added to these 3 events. So just to make it meaningful, I'm going to double click on the title here, and I'm going to actually give this a name, Symptom Changes. Hit enter. Now it's reordered alphabetically. So now those 3 events that are shown in the back have the Symptom Changes tag. That's phase 1. Phase 1 is to actually add a tag to the events. Okay, so now if I click this one event, got a cold, let's just go double check our work here. And I go inspect it, it's going to pull up the properties for that one event called got a cold. And it shows you up here. Now we're only editing 1 event, not 3. So now it fills out the sheet here and allows you to edit these fields. And if I go under tags, it's going to show, yep, this tag is added to that event. So I'm going to click done. Do the same thing for this one. I'm going to go pull up the tags for cancer diagnosis, click inspect, hit tags. It's there too. Now the negative example is if I click birth for wife, inspect that, it's not going to have that tag because it wasn't part of that original 3 event selection. It is extremely important, and a lot of people get hung up on this, to understand what happens when you click an item like an event here and then inspect it, and what this property sheet does, and what it doesn't do, and then how that's a little different from when you have more than one item selected and then you click inspect, that this is now editing both events. Any changes you make here are going to overwrite that field on that event. If you don't understand that concept, if that's still difficult, you must understand it. And you can either reach out for support or you can refer to the manual. Or ask someone for help, really is probably the best way to do it. Because this is the same pattern that's used in all apps that edit any kind of complex data. And this app edits complex data because that's what systems, emotional systems, requires. It's inherent in Bowen theory. So now I have a tag that's added to each one of the three events that I am saying pertains to a shift in a symptom. This one is a shift in a cold symptom. This one's a shift in a Crohn's symptom. This is a shift in a cancer symptom. Now that I have that tag added to these events, I can search by that tag. So I can search by clicking the hourglass, not inspect. Inspect is how you edit, search is how you view. So I'm going to go click search, and I'm going to go click symptom changes in the search box. See how this is a different tag list, right? It has the same contents, but it's part of a different panel here. This is the search box. So I click symptom changes, and it's going to line them all out here on the bottom. Although I need to space out the time a little differently so it's actually interesting looking. Let's see here. Let's have this, make this one 2003. There we go. So now it's got these three events laid out on the bottom. And if I click over here just to the right of this first event and then the left arrow to snap it to that event, it shows, now showing January 1st, 2001, and it shows that, it reflects that here with the blue box border, not a filled in box, but a border box to show what date is currently shown on the diagram. It's exactly equal to 1/1/2001. It shows it here, and it shows it with the blue box right here. Then when I click the right arrow, it'll snap, it'll jump to the next event on that timeline, which is the cancer diagnosis. Then when I click it again, it jumps to the next event, which is the Crohn's flare-up, and it'll do that so that you can narrow the focus from a very, very long, somewhat disorganized timeline of events down to a specific set of events that you want to focus on, either to present an argument to an audience. For example, these hypothetical 10 events suggest that this emotional process is happening. Well, you need to get those 10 events on screen, whatever, if you've got 10 events you think that make up that some kind of a theoretical formulation. You need to get the audience to only see those events that you think are necessary to make your argument. And if you've got a long, long timeline with 1,000 events or 100 events, it's too overwhelming. So this is a way to filter out the timeline by tag, by category. So I'm going to reset the search here. And now we're back and it's showing everything that I have. And now I'm going to add, let's see here. Let's add another one. Let's slice this timeline by only the tags that pertain to the husband and wife, regardless of whether there's symptom or birth. It doesn't matter. We just want to have a tag that will pull up all the events for both of these people. So it's the same process. You hold down Command on Mac or Control on Windows to do a multiple selection here. So I'm going to click husband, this one, wife, that one, husband. So now I've selected all the events that pertain to the husband and the wife. and I'm going to inspect them. And again, back to this key concept, when you have multiple items selected here, multiple events, and then you inspect it, any changes you make on the property sheet that's about to pull up is going to be written to every single event. So if I have the description field here, and I click inspect, whatever I type in this field, if I type something happened on this day, literally something happened on this day, and then hit done, it's going to change the description for these events to something happened on this day. I'm going to lose got a cold, lose Crohn's flare up, and it's going to actually write that. So anyway, that's just a side note, but that's an extremely important thing to understand. Instead of editing these, I'm going to go into tags, and I'm going to get one of these tags here that is unused so far, and I'm going to name it, well, let's just name it pair bond, because that's what they are. All right. I'm going to check this box, which means it's going to add that tag to each one of these 1, 2, 3, 4 events that are selected back here. It's important that you think of it this way. You're adding the tag to the event. You can get mixed up if you're thinking I'm going to dump these events into a tag, or, when you've got all this down pat, you can call it whatever you want. But when you're just trying to grasp the basic data model here, you've got to think of it that you're adding the tag to the event, because that's how you will understand the property sheet, how that works, setting the description field, setting the location field, setting the tag field, whatever it is on the event, you've got to understand how that works. So now what I can do is I can search by pair bond or symptom changes. And if I click this, I'm going to get on the bottom, and so it happens, whoops, didn't mean to do that, in the main timeline, all of the events that I had selected when I clicked that checkbox, when I added that tag to the events, was these 4. So now I've got husband's birth, wife's birth, got a cold for the husband, and Crohn's flare for the wife. If I uncheck that and go click in the search panel now, not in the events property sheet, in the search view, which you get to by this hourglass, if I go click symptom changes, it's going to jump and show all those tags again, those original 3, just the symptom changes. You can create tags for anything you want, and I do think it would be useful someday for me to put together some cookbook recipes, so to speak, for certain uses for tags. But this tutorial is about the tag concept in general. It's that you get to pick your tags. I can think of 100 different tags for different kinds of research questions. Maybe you want to separate events out by categories. Maybe you want to by generations. Maybe you want to separate them out by one side of a family line. Maybe you want to separate them out by symptom. Maybe you want to separate them out by time spans. There are no rules for tags for that. All tags will do, just to reframe the original statement, all tags will do is give you a way to categorize your events so that you can search for those categories. Because you're going to end up with a lot of events in your timeline. And this will allow you to narrow the focus down. So if I clear this out, click reset, go back to the timeline, it's all the events are there, and we can see the entire date range here. Now, an advanced concept is how tags pertain to emotional process symbols. Emotional process symbols are a little bit of a special case. If I add in a conflict symbol between husband and wife, I can get this symbol to be shown or hidden based on the tag. The underlying concept actually hasn't changed. It's just that it's applied a little bit differently with symbols. So when you open up the properties, when you inspect the symbol by double clicking on it or clicking this inspect button, there's going to be this tab down at the bottom called event tags. The hard rule is that tags are always added to events. That's it. Tags are not added to people. They're not added to pair bonds. They're technically not even added to emotional process symbols. But this is a shortcut to allow you to set a tag here to the events on this symbol. Because remember, an emotional process symbol has a date or a date range, which means that there's two events that will show up on the timeline. So if I go into the timeline, it's going to show those added now. Conflict began, conflict ended, because I just added a start and an end date to that event. So it slipped them in there with the people that it's connected to. So you can go and actually, if I click this symbol once, click the inspect button, and then go to event tags, and then let's just call that symptom, add that to the symptom changes. Let's say that's a symptom of anxiety or something like that to keep it theoretical. Now, when I search by that tag, again, I clicked this spyglass here, it's going to add those to the list. So now I have only the events that I am calling symptoms, symptom shifts. So now again, if I go down to the bottom here and click somewhere on this timeline, kind of next to that first event, and then click that left arrow just to snap it to the first one, now I can walk through, clicking the right arrow, one event at a time in this search list. And there's the symbol showing up. And then there it is disappearing when I jumped forward to the conflict ended. So this is all to say, I just cleared the search there, that emotional process symbols are special in that they contain either one or two events, depending on how you've edited it. And those events have the tags, just like all the other events. So you get this shortcut tag here, the tab, event tags, that will allow you to set a tag on that symbol, and then both of its events will get that tag as well. So really the rule that you can always keep in mind is that tags pertain to events alone. And when you're searching by tag, it's only going to show the emotional process symbols that have dates set, which means they have events added to them, like this one and this one, and that those events have tags. So if you're not searching by the tag that's on this that's on those two events, if you're searching by some other tag, this symbol's not going to show up. Just as an example, and then this will be the end of this video. I'm going to add in another symbol, and I'm going to make this much earlier. Let's say that one was a discrete date. There's no end date. A discrete event. So now I've got the distance here between these two people. And if I go inspect that emotional process symbol and look at, if I go inspect that emotional process symbol and go to event tags, none are selected. But let's call that distances and add that tag to that symbol, because here it is at the top. It shows you what you're editing. This is the property sheet for this distance tag right now. Distance, and then between the two unnamed people, and that symbol, or rather the events under it, has that tag. added to it. It says that here, event tags added to this relationship symbol as well as its start and end events. So it's really the events that matter. So now if I go search and I search by symptom changes, it's going to show that original list of the 5 events, even though these 2 events are kind of special because they pertain to this symbol, that have that tag. Every single one of these, if I go inspect conflict ended, it has that tag, symptom changes. If I go inspect cancer diagnosis, click inspect, go to tags, it has symptom changes added. You will not see, here we are, I'm in the timeline. You will not see that distance symbol here. And if I cycle back through these events here on the bottom, the distance symbol is not shown because it doesn't have the symptom changes tag. But if I go search by, if I clear this out and then go search by distances, I will see that symbol. So that's how you can show, you can categorize sequences of events and their emotional process symbols, if they have any, by tag. That's all that tags will do, is categorize events, whether on the bottom timeline, on this timeline, or on the visual timeline, which I haven't shown yet in this video, but will show up if you pull up, if you click the button down at the bottom. And that one has a special feature where it lays things out to give you some kind of temporal distance, space between the events here. And if I click symptom changes, it's going to show the same thing. It's just going to show those events that I had before, right? That I added that tag to. And then if you click another tag, like pair bond, it's going to stack them so that you can compare timelines. If you want to do that. If I add in the distances one, there it is. It's adding that one that was in 2016. So I've got all my tags here, and it lays all the events out under each tag. And that's everything you can do with tags. So I hope that was helpful. Tags are essential if you're going to do any kind of substantial data-driven presentation of a case. Because whenever you do that, you're going to have to organize your data and prune down all the unnecessary data. You're going to have to organize your data into meaningful categories for an audience so you can argue your theoretical formulation and see if they agree. When you do that, you're going to want to have 3 tags, 4 tags, each one with a very limited number of events up in here, because an audience just doesn't have the attention span to handle very many points, especially when there's a complex phenomenon like an emotional process, where you have to take 3 or 4 events, or 5, 6, 7 events, and put them together into some kind of a conclusion and see if you agree with the presenter, if you're in the audience, for example. So I hope that helped, and good luck using tags. You have to use them if you're getting into any kind of substantial data work, and they're a very powerful mechanism. Talk to you later.